Alright, welcome. My name is Rida Chebet Kering. President William Ruto has said the carbon credits market should benefit communities fighting the adverse effects of climate change. He said Kenya is already a leader in the generation of carbon credits in Africa, accounting for over 20% of the continent's volume over the past 5 years. The president noted that a portion of proceeds have been invested towards funding clean cooking and solar home systems, as Millicent Luamba reports.
President William Ruto has said the carbon credits market should benefit communities fighting the adverse effects of climate change. He said Kenya is already a leader in the generation of carbon credits in Africa, accounting for over 20% of the continent's volume over the past 5 years.
For the past 8 consecutive years, documented by the UN to be the hottest years in recorded history, each new year has been hotter than the previous year. The whole world is reeling from the staggering impact of climate change. The spread, scale, and frequency of disasters like hurricanes, typhoons, wildfires, and heat waves, melting sea ice and glaciers, droughts and desertification, floods and rising sea levels in numerous regions of all continents indicate that humanity is confronting unprecedented devastation on a global scale.
The president noted that a portion of proceeds have been invested towards funding clean cooking and solar home systems. He was speaking on Tuesday in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, during the launch of African Carbon Market Initiative (SCMI).
We signed a framework agreement for collaboration on the development of sustainable green industries in Kenya with an investor to produce 30 gigawatts of green hydrogen in Kenya. There exists opportunities in Kenya to produce 20 gigawatts of wind power, 10 gigawatts of geothermal electricity, and being at the equator, considerable amount of solar energy. Green energy production opportunities are vast in Kenya and throughout Africa. In the East Africa alone, for example, there exists sufficient hydroelectric potential to produce 100,000 megawatts, and if properly exploited, could generate enough clean energy for the whole of the continent. Instead of struggling to power industrialization using dirty energy, which is costly and destroying our planet, we want to make a case for developed economies to decarbonize their production by directing industrial investments to Africa and making use of clean energy to manufacture for the whole world.
President Ruto noted that Kenya was committed to working with initiatives such as SCMI in expanding carbon markets and carbon credit opportunities in our country. He said the country will be generating more than 30 million tons of carbon credits annually, earning incomes and creating green jobs for the youth.
The affected communities endured disruption for their livelihoods, losing homes, grazing lands and farming fields, while social amenities like schools, health facilities, markets, fish landings and processing facilities, once thriving hotels, curio shops, resorts and lodges, electricity lines and water supply and sanitation units were swallowed by water bodies. Loss and damage must therefore be addressed with a level of seriousness which demonstrates fairness, urgency, and consideration.
However, the president said it is vital that there are carbon markets that work for Kenyan and African communities. He said currently about 80% of the value of some carbon credits are captured by intermediaries.
COP26 established the Glasgow Dialogue to formulate funding arrangements for measures to prevent, mitigate, and remedy loss and damage associated with adverse effects of climate change. Loss and damage is not an abstract topic of endless dialogue. It is our daily experience and the living nightmare of millions of Kenyans and hundreds of millions of Africans. A phenomenon of rising water levels in Rift Valley lakes was experienced in Kenya in 2020 and generated humanitarian crisis of unprecedented levels. Approximately 75,000 households were displaced in 13 counties, with a total population of 379,000 requiring urgent humanitarian assistance. Kenya's next significant export will be carbon credits. This is why we call for simplified, more transparent carbon market systems that directly benefit communities and not just intermediaries.
Millicent Luamba, Maisha Prime News, Maisha Television.